Messi Anco, breaking Major League en la ciudad del sol. Here in Miami, we know who's el campeón. Leo my team, yeah, sweaters on the field, always wearing they team. Como que ya es un win, the trio of singing muchachos. Las familias se escuchan los barrios. Esta camiseta pinky la llevan todos los guachos. Los rookies quedan sin comentarios. Messi ambetea, tiki-taki gol. El estadio Chase bañado en gloria y sudor. Aquí se ama y se respeta el balón. Florida es tu casa, acostúmbrate al calor. Estate listo pa' Messi Anco. Estate listo pa' Messi Anco.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a melancholic episode of Messi and Co. on this Tuesday. I am Ashley here today with one of our two co-hosts, Gian. Unfortunately, Matt couldn't make it. And I apologize. I'm having a little bit of a voice issue, so you may see Gian jump in a little bit more to help lead the ship. But obviously, we're here to discuss what was quite an interesting Saturday night, which was Inter Miami losing in the League's Cup final 3-0 versus Seattle Sounders. So much to get into. I hope we have a lot of people join so we can have conversations because obviously I'm sure people have their thoughts on things, maybe things that went our way, things that didn't, and just the overall vibes. So, Gian, I'll start with you. Hopefully, first and foremost, you had a nice Labor Day weekend. I know we have people who watch from outside the United States. We yesterday was a federal holiday here, so we had a long weekend, which was nice, and we needed that day to recover, in my opinion, before I went back to my job. So how are you doing, Gian? Before we get into the madness that was Saturday.
I'm doing good, and I don't know if it's just divine intervention to have a holiday after a game like
Oh
this,
my
but
gosh, we
it
needed
is. It was much needed and incredible timing, to say the least. So, yeah, it was definitely a rough game. I think there's a lot to talk about. Just there's not one thing that went wrong. There were many things. So it'll be interesting to see what chat has to say about this game, and I guess what you have to say, Ash. But I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, but not surprised, if that kind of makes sense. Like disappointed that these guys couldn't get their second League's Cup, but I'm not surprised with how things kind of turned out because there have been signs leading up to a performance like this. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Well, I think that's a really interesting point. First of all, we already have a good amount of viewers, so I want to give a couple shout outs. Brad, here goes. Finally a therapy session. Yeah, I agree. Me and Gian were trying to give each other therapy on Sunday night and it wasn't going well. So maybe we'll do better this time with our therapy. Quasar, hello. Oh, hey, this is an OG. What's up? How you doing? Hope you've been well. Aisley and Al, of course. Sunday night was supposed to be Inter Miami's night. Well, and this point, Brad, I want you to know we are going to get to this, but we're going to talk about the game itself first because obviously this is a big talking point. So let's get into the game itself, okay? The starting lineup. The three of us predicted the lineup, except instead of Segovia, it was Allende, and meaning it was keeping that midfield three of Busquets, De Paul, and Yannick Wright, but you knew De Paul was gonna float, Messi was gonna float, Suarez was gonna float, and then I guess Allende was gonna float. And I said in the chat to you guys, I said, look, I think we would have all chosen Segovia, but maybe as they were thinking, and I'd say hindsight is 2020. They listened to Messi and Co, of course, the Inter Miami front office, and they know that we said that right now Seattle has a 13-2 goal advantage in this tournament, and they were thinking, well, if we're thinking about who's going to score more goals, Allende versus Segovia, we're going to just have to believe it's Allende based on the position we brought him in for and what he's been supposed to do this season. So we're going to keep that three midfield to help control Seattle on their attacking, and we're gonna have Allende jump in instead of Rodriguez because we want to get goals. That's how I interpreted it. Of that was their thinking. Do you think that was similar to what that was kind of going through their mind?
I understand the Rodrigo De Paul, Busquets, Yannick Bright midfield. It makes sense. You have a team, as we mentioned in a preview, that outscored opponents in 5 games in Leagues Cup leading up to this game 13-2. So Inter Miami understood the danger that this team posed. So it made sense. It made a lot of sense to have that midfield, a solid midfield. Velasco Segovia has shown to be one of the best players in Leagues Cup, not only with his passing ability, but also his ability to score from inside as well as outside the box. And it was surprising to me for Velasco Segovia not to be a starter in this game and Allende to be inserted into the lineup, knowing that Allende has missed countless opportunities. He's
Has
given
he?
He's been given so many chances. Yes, he makes the right runs. Yes, he's in the right positions. But after that, once he
But
receives
does
the
it
ball,
matter if it doesn't go in the
it
back of the
doesn't.
net?
Once he receives the ball, he has trouble controlling it. Sometimes it bounces off him and goes 1 to 2 yards ahead of him. Then when he has opportunity to finish, he doesn't. And I thought Velasco Segovia earned that starting position. And yeah, I think that what you say makes sense, Ashley, as far as them wanting Allende to be there because maybe he provides more of a scoring threat, quote unquote scoring threat, because you're not a scoring threat if you don't score. Um, I think that's what they did, but I think it threw everything off because if you also think about it, Allende ended up still playing on the right side, and what that did is it shifted the ball from playing on the right on to the left side, on the left of Busquets. So that also kind of changed some things. So I wasn't too happy with the lineup at all. I think I understood maybe what they were trying to do, but I didn't agree with it. And in the end, I think it ended up obviously
You're right.
not working. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I I think if it was Segovia instead of Allende, I would've I would've been happy with it because you know what? I thought it was based tactically on your competition, and like we said, we spoke about it in the pre-match. Some people agreed, some people disagreed, and again, guys, I apologize. I know my voice is a little mumbly, but stick with me. Um, in the Orlando game, people were having mixed opinion on the lineup, but I said, "We don't win that game if it wasn't for those midfield 3 because they helped stop so many Orlando chances." We had opportunities, but then we made the right substitutions in order to be able to secure a win. We were only down 1, similar to this match, and like I said, I didn't think it was the format of the team that was wrong. I think it was the attacking pieces that were wrong. And the same story today. How Segovia was chosen instead was not chosen over Allende, I think is crazy. And then I said this to you, you know, obviously in the second half, look, there's things to consider. Number one, Messi misses a 1 in 1,000 moment. And that happened. You can't expect Messi. He didn't have a great game, but he also, you know what I mean? Like we also have paid and we've spoken about this. We had 10 other players on the pitch who were quote unquote our best 11. Quote unquote, I say, right? So, with that in mind, he had a 1 in 1,000 miss. If he scores that, obviously the game changes. Who knows what happens? Suarez, for both Messi and Allende, absolutely stunning balls to both of them. Would have been stunning assists. And even though we don't agree with what's to go, we're not thrilled that Suarez isn't the number 9 striker that we want him to be. He in what he's been asked to do, for example, on Sunday post-match brawl, he did exactly what was asked for him. Those were 2 perfect passes that I could have scored. Messi, again, he does so much that, 1 in 1,000 times you miss. Like, it happens. It happens to everyone. Allende I said it to you immediately, this was an example of if you keep giving a guy a chance who keeps missing, he's gonna miss when it really matters. And this is when he missed when it really mattered because you know what? He didn't deserve to be starting in the final because he missed the last 6 weeks of chances he had. And yeah, he created the space and everything and he made the right run, but he missed an open freaking goal. Do we think obviously Messi did it a few minutes before, But again, Messi doesn't count. Like, sorry, I know we're Messi and Co, and I know we're saying that I'm not just trying to be like super what's the word, like subjective and say that Messi's best and can never do anything wrong. He missed. It's a problem. But Allende has done the same thing 100 times. Messi makes that shot 98 times. You know what I mean? So it's like it just annoyed me because in the end it just goes back to coaching and it goes back to being what I consider to be fairness in that you you have to earn your spot to play and you have to deliver in your job. And look, Allende came on in the second half as a sub and made a great impact. He could have done the exact same thing this time. We needed someone from minute one who was going to help create, and Allende doesn't create. He's supposed to finish. We needed creators, not finishers, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what annoyed me the most. And so while I'll look through the comments and you give me your thoughts just specifically on the Allende part because Messi, he missed. Everyone, you can be upset, but here's a great way of saying it. I can understand the Messi miss. He was trying to one time it. He made a mistake. It happens so rarely. Like people make mistakes, Messi makes mistakes, but he's still the greatest to ever play the game, and he'll make that shot the next 100 times. I feel fairly confident in. In this situation, Allende controlled the ball and literally missed an open goal. So it's just again a thing of if you get rewarded for not playing well, and we've gone back and forth on this a lot, Gian, but in my opinion, if you get rewarded by not playing well and start, then you miss an open goal in a final. Like it's no surprise to me, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I'll talk about it at the end, but I want to talk about a few other things.
Yeah, please cook.
Um, I told you this in our text group. This team to me is just fundamentally not a well-built team. This is a prime example of you can't throw a bunch of stars into a team and expect it to work well and to just consistently win. It's not a winning formula, I think. It'll get you wins here and there. We've noticed and we've seen games where we had no business winning and we had a magical moment from Messi, an insane goal from Suarez, an incredible pass from Busquets. But that's not a consistent winning formula to just hope that your stars always get everything done because they're not always going to. Messi's a prime example in this one. Messi usually will get that one done. In this case, he didn't. And I think it goes beyond just a miss, a regular miss. I think it was frustration.
And I
I
think
think
this is a good point too. Sorry not to interrupt, but it ties into what you say. Someone else needs to show up sometimes. It can't be Messi making 100% of your
I
goals.
think I think Messi in this case it was just not a simple miss. If you noticed, Messi is usually very subtle, very intentional with his shots. That wasn't a subtle, intentional, skillful shot. That was a shot with aggressiveness, with stress, just trying to absolutely rip the ball in, and that was unusual from him. And I think that stems from just this team not performing at its best, players that maybe shouldn't be on the pitch. You see Suarez and others kind of like bitch at other players and have issues with some of the lineups. And I think that was a frustration on Messi's part, him having to do everything. But going
Yeah.
back to what I was saying, I think it's a fundamental issue. You look at a Seattle Sounders team that has one of the best center back duos in all of MLS. Jackson Reagan was third in voting for Defender of the Year last season. Like that's how you build teams with
Right.
defense, with guys that are meant to be there. You brought in Maxi Falcon. Okay, I don't think he's the best, but I don't have that much of a complaint with him. But Lujan is not a starting center back in a Leagues Cup final match. You had David Martinez that I don't think is one either, but he's better than Lujan.
He's
You let
better.
him
I wish
go.
we didn't get rid of
You let
him.
him go. Tomas Aviles, another player that you spent a lot of money on that's just sitting on the bench that unfortunately doesn't have the discipline to be on a
Also
match
threw a
like this.
punch in the
We've
post.
seen that. So it's like you're not building this team properly. Then you look up top. Who are your attackers? How are you supposed to attack with this Inter Miami team that has? And again, I know we like this because it solidifies the midfield. But think about this, Ash. You have Yannick Bright, who's not an attacker. You have Sergio Busquets, who's not an attacker. You have Rodrigo De Paul, who's not an attacker.
Yeah.
You have Leo Messi, who in this point in his career is no longer an attacker. Can he score goals? Can he attack? Yeah, but he's not. His role is not an attacking role. His role is going deep onto our sometimes into even our side of the field into the defense, getting the ball and building. Now you've turned in Luis Suarez, our lone number 9, into another person that is a facilitator and not an attacker, a guy that's
So you have
playing
all these
like
facilitators and no one to
you have
score.
Tadeo Allende that is our only attacker but can't score. So it's like fundamentally the pieces
Mm.
they may look good on paper. Yeah, Busquets, yeah, De Paul, yeah, Bright, yeah, Messi, yeah, Suarez, this and that. But that's on paper, but on the field they don't work. And I mentioned to you this Suarez. I don't have any complaints about him in his current role. He is doing great, but Ash, we don't need that role. We
Right.
don't need a number 9 that is facilitating when you have 4 or 5 other players that can do that. You need a 9 to be a reference point where all these other facilitators and passers that we have can have a reference point and danger inside the area. We don't have that. And that's why when I talk about I'm disappointed but not surprised, is because this team matched up against a team that may not have the star power, but has a fundamentally built team to operate for finals. And that's why they lost. And Tadeo Allende, I think he's had his opportunities, Ash. I really do. And I think it's time to look somewhere else at this point. I don't see any reason why he should see the field in the foreseeable future.
Well, and that's why we've been having this discussion for over a month now, where even though I've said, Fafa maybe isn't your answer, but maybe Baltasar Rodriguez is. Like, that he doesn't if you keep missing, you can't keep starting, and that's what this is, I think, a great point by Sergio. These type of games that show you why you need an experienced manager, questions need to be asked about leadership because, a few things I think that were at fault and a few things that weren't. Like, for example, someone who we vouched for a lot, and who, by the way, I'm not giving up on him. This isn't me saying this is the last game he should ever play. Ian Frey probably had the worst game of his professional career, which is a shame because Ian Frey has I- is a better defender than Cello. He had a bad game. I think there's a statistic here, and I wanted to bring it up because it's super true. He's a great kid, and he's had to go through so much, and he is technically better, and he's played really well in the last few matches. He lost the ball 15 times. He can't do that in the final. Yannick Bright, I understand the penalty was a stupid thing to do in the 90th plus minute, but I'm sorry, I'll fight with anyone. The amount of balls he saved in the first 85 minutes and the amount of times he stopped a goal or attack from forming is why he plays. Like, that's in my opinion.
I
I
still think he had a poor game. Just to add, I mean, I agree with what you said there. As far as typically he'll play good, but he had a very poor game along with Busquets and along with De Paul.
They
That made
they didn't hold what we're hoping to hold 100%. Um So it's like I don't blame Mascherano for that because I think Ian Frey and Bright had. I think if it was me, I would have chosen them too. So I'm not going to blame coaching. And by the way, I'm not an experienced manager, so I'm allowed to say whoever the hell I want. I want to play, and it doesn't really hold much weight. But Lujan, for example, to your point, like I think Maxi Falcone has been nothing but consistent all season. You're right; he's not the perfect defender. He's no prime Sergio Ramos, but he's done what we've asked him to do this season, bar none. Jordi Alba, same thing, is doing exactly what he needs to do. Um, Lujan, you when you chose to get rid of David Martinez, is that part because of DePaul? Maybe. Tomas Aviles clearly just does not have the discipline to start. There's no chance you can start him in a final. There's just none. You've done over 2 years. There's too many disciplinary infractions where it's just you're not. It's worth to play a worser player, and that hopefully has Tomas Aviles really think to himself because you know what he is the better, obviously, I think, skill-wise, he's a better defender than Lujan. But because of all of the misdemeanors you've had over the last season and a half, the coach and the team don't believe in you because they think you're gonna do something that's gonna hurt the team. And so hopefully he learns from that. But then what I would say is that in the second half, we come out and in the first 15 minutes, we're playing really well. Like we said, 2 golden opportunities to score that were unfortunate misses. And then we see Segovia come in. If it was me and I wrote this in the group chat, I said, bring him on at halftime for Allende. You have to understand Allende is not going to come through when it matters. I'm sorry. I hope it changes. He's a young kid. I have nothing against him as a person, but in the last 6 weeks, he has missed every single chance to score a goal when needed. Every single one. The penalty last week, he drew a penalty, but he wasn't the one to take it, for example. Um, so Segovia needed to come in, but then you bring Segovia in and you take out Lujan. And at that point, I understand it because then you can move Sergio Busquets to center back, but then you bring in Fafa and you take out Ian Frey, and that I don't understand. If you're I understand Ian Frey didn't have a good game, then you put in Cello because we're only down 1 goal and we've just spent 15 minutes absolutely barraging them on offense and having multiple chances. And I don't know if you noticed Lumen Stadium, which by the way, Lumen Field did a phenomenal atmosphere and they deserve a lot of credit. The Seattle fans, the Seattle organization. It was a great final in terms of atmosphere. But let me tell you something. It was silent for the first 30 minutes of the second half because they all thought Inter Miami was going to score. Because we all thought Inter Miami was going to score. And so it was substitutions for the wrong players at the wrong time. And that's coaching. And it just it brings a lot of frustration. And I see a lot of comments. Look, we're going to get to the post-match part of it. But right now we're talking about the actual match part of it. And in my opinion, the game plan and what you are trying to do with the players you have, which goes beyond what you say, Gian. Yeah, the team, the infrastructure and the construction, agreed, they've made mistakes. But if I think if you switch Segovia and Allende, you're putting out your best chance in the final. They didn't put out their best chance minus 1 player, and then they didn't take him out. And so, in my opinion, that's like where the big fall off takes place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that with that substitution, minute 57, Telasco Sovia for Lujan.
Me neither.
Um, because I thought it was obviously good to bring in Telasco Segovia. I thought that helped a lot. And then I was quite okay with Busquets taking Lujan's role
Me
as
too.
a center
Me
back
too.
like that. And look, that's something that maybe they might have to look into, like in the future. Having Busquets as a starting center back moving forward alongside Maxi Falcon. Yeah, maybe he's not as fast because of age as Lujan. I mean, Lujan's not a rocket either, but as far as presence and the IQ and knowing where to stand and where to
Isn't
be, and that I think it was that first or second goal that we got scored on. It was Lujan that it was on the header. Lujan actually stepped out to pressure
yeah.
an attacker that made no sense because it was so far out, and he left an entire hole behind him,
Yeah.
which forced Maxi Falcon to move over to the left, and then Ian Frey to move over as well, and he moved over a little bit too late, and I put that one on Lujan. So
Yeah.
to honest, boost that substitution was fine, and I would actually look into making that a permanent thing. Busquets in as a center back.
So that you can keep playing De Paul and Bright.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but even if not, like Busquets at center back is going to be better than Lujan, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys feel the same way as I do, but I feel like Busquets is better than
Here's a
Lujan
good
at center
question.
back.
Maybe you can answer this as an Ecuadorian.
Didn't we pay good money for Orlando? Here's the thing with well, before I'm going to get sidetracked, but let me finish this thought and I'll get to that.
Sorry, yeah.
Because you think about Mascherano in Barca, Mascherano was a midfielder, and they moved him into a center back role to play for Barca, and he ended up being a center back, and it worked out well. When you have great players that are that skillful, they can adapt, and especially defensive players, it becomes easier for them. So that's what I would look for. As far as Orlando is concerned, that's the thing with Inter Miami. They invest in players that have injury history, and that's what happened with Obando. And then the same thing with Silvetti that they're bringing in from Argentina also has it. The same thing with David Martinez when they brought him on. Like they bring on players that they can find for less money, but that are injury prone. So I don't know what's going on with Obando. I don't understand that signing. Then the second one, Ian Frey for Fafa Picot, minute 72. That one was strange.
It should have been Papa for Allende, and if you wanted to make another substitution, then Ian Frey for Cello. Because I get it, we like Ian Frey, but he was having a bad game. It happens. Then you make a like for like sub because again, we're only down 1 goal and there's 20 plus minutes left.
Yeah,
It's not
once
like
he
we were
did that,
down
the
by
ball actually
4.
moved down. The ball actually moved down, and then ended up being Maxi, Busquets, and Falcon playing in defense, and then you had Fafa Picot up front. And honestly, at that point, I think it was also a desperation move. I'd love to know what was going on through his head to kind of think about that, because we were
We had
still
7
down.
people lined up on the 18-yard box to score. No one was giving it. No one was in the right space.
Yeah, we were down a goal still at that point, so I'm not sure why the need to do that was. But shortly after that, after the 7 minute 72 after that substitution, 12 minutes later is when we get scored on the 2-0. I think that Maturano at times kind of he's a coach that's still learning, and he's trying to figure out when the right time to make substitutions are. And as he's trying to figure out that part, what he's done is he's either made substitutions too early or too late, and the ones that are too early are out of desperation. And I feel like when you make substitutions out of desperation, this is just not it's just not the right thing to do. So Macerano, what do you
I was gonna say this is yeah. Mascherano's going to do is if I were him, I would have played both Baltasar and Segovia de Bono with Messi. I would say playing both would be difficult because I think the idea of having that back four and then that midfield three, like I said, it in against a Seattle team. Think about this. Until what was it, the 81st minute? I want to say we were only down a goal, and we had in the second half there was 20 minutes where we had like 90% possession, and we were playing against a team and doing what like other teams weren't able to do, which was a 13 to goal deficit where they were steamrolling teams. It's hindsight, like we're thinking about how the score ended, how the game ended, how the discipline ended. But if you're thinking about in that moment, Mascherano, they were doing the right things in the second half, and then they abandoned it and they made the wrong changes.
But Ash, this is what I want to say.
Yeah.
I don't want you to confuse possession with actually doing well in a game, because who actually did well was Seattle and playing their game plan. They didn't want to have the ball. They didn't care about having the ball. They gave Inter Miami the ball because
Yeah,
they were
but they
fine with it.
didn't
They
give us
wanted to play
2 open nets that we missed. That wasn't part of their game plan. Think about that. I mean, those it's not like they were like, "Oh, it was a curler from the 18-yard box that Messi just missed." We had 2 point blank chances from the penalty spot that it
Yeah, but
normally
so
would
did
score.
They missed 2 or 3 point blank shots. I mean, to me, we're a team that we had.
Maybe so.
Actually, we had 68% possession. We had zero shots on target. Zero. That's embarrassing. Zero
Yeah.
shots on target with 68% possession. So when we're dominating on possession, that doesn't mean, hey, keep doing what you're
We're
doing
playing
because you're
better, right?
dominating possession. That is actually worrisome, guys. We're dominating on possession and we're not doing crap with it. We're not doing anything, and I can understand that because number one, what I said before, we don't have people that are dynamic enough to attack other than probably Messi, and then we know again Suarez is just facilitating, and you have Tadeo Allende that can't do anything. But the second part is we don't give him enough credit to Seattle. Seattle played some of the best defense I've ever seen in a final, some of the best defense I've ever seen against Inter Miami. There's a reason.
Agreed.
There's a reason why they've won every cup in MLS that there is to win in MLS. The Leagues Cup was the only one I think that they needed to win, and they finally won it. They played so narrow, like from both sides. They played narrow and then they played compact. And because Inter Miami doesn't have any dynamic wing players, they were perfectly fine with allowing anything to go on the sides. Because Jordi Alba is not a dynamic wing player. He's a guy that can run up and then put it in a center, but he's not going to take anybody one-on-one. The same
Especially
thing
had
with
Segovia starting. I think
yeah,
it would have been
Bray
different because
saying
you would
that
have
same
had Segovia and Messi both causing a lot of havoc and
But
making
look at
people
look at
nervous.
the amount of saves that their center backs had on
Oh my God,
how many
huge.
times did Messi try to shoot from outside? How many times did we have a
Yeah,
shot from inside the box that right before it started going to the goal,
yeah.
what center back threw his foot in the air? I think Reagan had an amazing one. Like that was amazing and incredible defense. And to be a defense like that, you need better. I'm sorry, but you need better players, and you
Right.
need a better system, because this is a team that, again, we said allowed 2 goals in 5 matches. They had 3 clean sheets in 5 matches going into this game. With that mediocre offense that Inter Miami had, with that 68% possession that led to nothing, led to 0 shots on target, was passing from side to side to side because it could. Like, you're not going to beat a team like that. So kudos to Seattle. Seattle did amazing. This is some of the best defense I've ever seen.
And I think you're right. And this is an interesting point. I'm a Sounders fan. It's a good thing Matt's not here. Who attended the match? One thing I'm not hearing is criticism of Rodrigo De Paul. Well, Gian did say earlier that he thought all three midfielders did not play well. Listen, Rodrigo De Paul, number one, there's a couple things about Rodrigo De Paul, and let me start by saying this. I'm extraordinarily happy that he is on Inter Miami because I think he number one, he keeps Messi. Forget the other players, forget the team construction, whatever you want to say. As an Inter Miami fan myself, I want to keep Messi for as long as possible. That, and if you want to call that bias, you can call it whatever you want. But he is still in his prime, a world champion. He's been at this team for a month. He's been playing without the full roster. Messi was injured for half of it, and he's been playing mainly against Mexican opponents. So if you're expecting Rodrigo De Paul to come in and save the day and be the best player on the pitch, yes, I expected more of him, but he's only been here a month, everybody, and he hasn't played consistent with the starters, whatever the starters end up being. He hasn't played in a consistent formation, game plan, starters, or opposition in the last month.
Wait, but
So,
are you cut? You, I think you're cutting him a little too much slack,
well, and
Ash.
I was to say, but he's not there yet. He needs to do better. But I am saying there are some circumstances.
Wait,
We've
would you
said it.
say you expected more from him by this point? Because I did. I expected
I
more from
expected
him.
more from him in the final. In the final, I think the last month has been. It's not like he's just been put into his role at Atletico Madrid and asked to recreate it. Because if he was asked to do that, I think he'd be perfect every match. But he's being asked to do different things. That
I
we have
think
to
I
keep
think
that into
he's
consideration.
I think we expect, or I'll speak for myself. I think I expected more from him by this point. And why? Because it's much different than the other Barca boys that came in. You had Jordi Alba and Busquets that came in at a later point in their career in their late 30s, basically retiring from Barcelona. You had Suarez that was already in retirement in Brazil. You had Messi that was in PSG, and I think Messi lived up, obviously, to everything that we wanted from him. But this is completely different. Rodrigo De Paul is not retiring from
No.
Atletico Madrid. He's in what you would call the prime of his career. Maybe not the best year he's had in Atletico Madrid, but definitely, I think, doing very well at the ripe age of, what is he, 32 maybe?
One, I
Or
think.
31, 32 years old.
Yeah.
Like, he's a player that's coming straight out of La Liga in the prime of his career, coming over to MLS. I think I expected more from him. Now, I wasn't expecting him to take over the team or anything like that, but he's had good games. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't seen him shine like I thought he would. And one of the things that I think with some of these players and what may be happening with Rodrigo De Paul is they come to MLS and they think they're going to be that much better than everybody
Right.
else, and they expect this league to
He hasn't
be
had the
easier,
learning curve.
and it's not the case. This league is a competitive league. I think it's a physical league, much more physical than La Liga, where there's a lot more running, a lot more clashing, of players, and I think that he's struggling with that. But I would have wanted a bit more. Again, I'm not going to say that he's played awful or anything like that, but I had a higher bar set for him that
Yeah.
I'm yet to see him reach, and I think he should have reached by now.
Well, luckily, he has 4 years to reach it, and I think he will reach it in time, but I think it is, by the way, a fair criticism
Alba came in
that
at 34. Is there that much of a distance? Yes. Yes, there is.
and they're positionally very different. I mean, what Jordi Alba was doing at Barca from a very young age at Barca at a very young age compared to what we're asking Rodrigo De Paul, it's completely different. Jordi Alba is first of all slotted in his position he's played his whole entire life, and he's also played with the other three the whole entire life. I think this is an interesting statistic though. And Jesse, I'd love if you could clarify for me if you mean since the four of them arrived, because 202 goals and assists from the Barca 4 in the last, I guess, 3 seasons we've had them compared to everyone else, 42 goals. That's a pretty big difference. And so I think the idea that the Barca 4 are not working is not true. I think the people that have been the players that have been brought in to support them, the system, and I will go as far as to say the coaching, whether you can say, "Oh, these are all Messi's choices." Maybe some of them impact it, but the 4 of them on the field are producing and doing their job, in my opinion. It's in different ways. This year, we're not seeing the stars we wanna see, but like I said, we should have been up 2-1 in the 70th minute because, he gave 2 silver platter places where he placed the ball with no defenders, one-on-one, on literally on the 12-yard line, like, within the box center, and so you can't say he didn't do what was asked for him. If it's what we want from him, that's a different conversation than what's asked for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just can't say that we should be up 2-1 because if we're looking at missed goals, they missed plenty of opportunities in that first half where we should have
But
been
not that we're, like,
down.
one-on-one within when it was
Oh
just them versus
yeah.
the goalkeeper.
Y-
Oh,
Yeah,
Ustari had one big save, you're right. Ustari had a big save, I
there
remember.
was that one that hit the post
Right.
in the minute 20 something maybe. I think it
I think
was.
this is yeah. Yeah, no, it's true, and I mean, there's so many places we need to look into and to move upon. I think this is a fair point. You have to understand he should be doing better, but he's been in a different position every game in the last 3 weeks, and again, against not the league he's playing in a unique competition. So I'm gonna give him a little slack. Ask me this when we're in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Ask me in the playoffs, is Rodrigo De Paul delivering what he's supposed to be delivering? Because that's what I'm really gonna start noticing. And after this international break, I think even the best, like Messi's different. He comes in and he wins the League's Cup, but he's also the greatest player to ever play a sport out of hundreds of thousands of millions of players who have played it. Rodrigo De Paul is not the best to ever play a sport. He's just a player who's very good in his prime who has played with Messi. So I'm going to cut him a little bit more slack and I'm going to give him a little bit more time. However, I agree have what was, he didn't bring what we were hoping he was going to bring on Sunday. But again, we will have to see. Um, Natalia, someone who is a consistent listener and who gives great insight. Sadly, this is how Masha makes his formation: assign players to a position and hope they come up with their game plan. You know what? I think that's actually a really good way of looking at it because I do think that's part of what he does. I don't see a lot of on the field coaching from Mascherano. I see a lot of pre-coaching and a lot of post-coaching. I don't see him being adjusting or being flexible once the game begins. And that is probably an age thing. That's probably an inexperience thing. And that's also probably when you know you're playing three people who are within 3 years of your age and who you played for years with on the same team. Like and then that goes back to the front office. So it's this cyclical issue we're having, right? And this game was kind of a culmination of all of the things to your point, Gian, that the Barca 4 is the Barca 4. How you build around it, and that includes your starting 11, your formation, your substitutions, and your coaches. You can't blame that on the Barca 4. If you want to say Messi chose his friends or chose the coach or whatever, maybe. But then Jorge Mas and David Beckham should have been like, no, this is the coach we're putting in. And that's, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I think that there's blame on a lot of different tiers as it relates to this. And what we can hope moving forward is they figure out that Allende needs is not your answer to be your if you're gonna go with these formations and if you have these players until the end of the MLS campaign, you must win the MLS Cup if you want the season to have any sniff of being a success, or else there are gonna be so many major questions asked for every aspect of this team.
I'm glad you
Um,
brought that up though, Ash, because I think that that's something I
yeah,
wanted to talk about and see what you guys in chat are thinking. This season it has finally opened the doors and is on the cusp of becoming a failure. It wasn't a reality a few weeks ago, a few months ago, where we were very, I think, very positive talking about a Club World Cup that obviously we understood was far fetched, maybe to think we'd win, but we felt like we'd do good. We were talking about a Champions Cup that we were fairly positive we'd make it to the final and had a chance to win. We were fairly positive about a Leagues Cup, and we were even fairly positive about a Supporters Shield and a MLS Cup. And as this season has gone along, I think we've discovered more and more holes within this team, from coaching to personnel, to I think team chemistry
I was gonna say chemistry and confidence. I was just
and,
gonna say that. Yeah.
and just how team morale. I feel like we found a lot of different holes, and I feel like we have more questions now than we had answers than we did at the beginning of the season, and it's on the cusp of becoming a failure of a season, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
the Champions Cup was a flop. This Leagues Cup, I mean, you make it to the final, okay, you get a berth to the Champions Cup next season, but at the end of the day, this team didn't look competitive in a final. They almost didn't make it out of the semifinal. They made it out because of a red card in minute 70 something. Like, that's when the game really changed. um this doesn't look like a winning season to me. And if Inter Miami doesn't make necessary changes, maybe some difficult decisions, um, there's not much. They're not going to salvage what's left of it. I don't. I'm not confident about a supporter shield right now, and I'm
And
not
Messi
confident.
still hasn't signed his extension,
And I'm
which
not
I'm
confident
not
about
happy
an
about.
MLS Cup. Honestly, I'm not confident about an MLS Cup at all, because this team is not good right now. Now they have good players on paper, but where the players are on the actual field and what we're seeing and the tactics and how they play together, I don't think they win an MLS Cup
Let me give you
currently. Now, if they make changes, yeah, like I can see that, because we've got the star power to do it, but the changes have to start today, like
let me
now.
ask let me ask you if you find any similarities with this. How is it possible that PSG, when you had a front line of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, couldn't make it past the quarterfinals of the Champions League for those 2 or 3 years? What would you blame it on? Like,
Uh, Number one, I mean, they faced one of the best Real Madrid teams in a long time. That's number one. And then number two is what I said before. I told you this at the beginning of this episode. So if you guys are just tuning in, you missed it. This game, along with what you just said, Ash, are a prime example that you can't win consistently by just getting a bunch of stars and
right,
putting them on the field together. It's the same way the Galacticos with Real Madrid, when you had Figo, Ronaldo, Zidane, and all those people didn't win a Champions League. It's the same thing. Like, that's not enough. It certainly helps. And if you put players in the right positions and you surround them with the right players and you got the right coach and you've got the right physios and there's a winning recipe to be had.
right. They just haven't
But
found
having
it.
four Barca guys and an Atletico Madrid guy doesn't guarantee you nothing.
When your other 6 plus your coaching and plus, again, look, Sergio Busquets, who I thought for the last 2 seasons had been actually phenomenal and was still, I thought, one of the best at his position. I think this is the first year where you're starting to see that his legs are really going and that he's, I think reaching the twilight. Suarez, it's interesting because it's the same, but again, he shouldn't be asked to do what he's doing. That's the problem. You need to have a center forward who's scoring and threatening, and that should be your main point of attack. But to his credit, 20 he has what, 20, like Matt said, it was 20 goal contributions in 24 games. That's not a bad statistic.
Look, if
So
you
how
ask
can
me,
it
Ash, if you ask me what's one change that you would make moving forward to make this team better, I mean, other than obviously the defense, my one change would be focused around Suarez.
Yeah.
I
Get
love
rid of
what
Allende, have Segovia and have Messi be the ones facilitating, not Suarez. Feed Suarez, have Rodrigo De Paul
Suarez needs to
feed
play as a
Suarez
center forward.
and score the damn goals. That's what I think.
Suarez needs to be a center forward, not a facilitator. You've got
Correct.
enough of
That's
those.
what
You
I'm
don't need
saying.
that.
Have a
And if
Segovia and
Suarez
Messi
can't do
always
that,
there facilitating.
and if Suarez can't do that, and I suspect that that's one of the reasons why they've created this new role for him, is because physically he can't make those runs and
Right,
and be that
right,
center
right.
forward. That's what I suspect. But if he can't be that center forward, then you need to get him out and put someone that can be a reference point in the middle where people can make passes into, and where he can have actually have defenders worried about him and open up space for others.
All right, well, we're 46 minutes into this episode now, and I think because we just talked about him, we can move on to the post-match activities that took place because and we don't need to spend too much time on it because at the end of the day, we just saw this happen 2 months ago with PSG and Chelsea in the final of the Club World Cup where the coach, Luis Enrique, punched a Chelsea player in the face. Like it's not that brawls after finals don't happen. So, but let's talk about it because this is one point I wanna make that it is in defense of Inter Miami, and then I think the rest of it deserves all of the crap it's gonna get and all of the bad words it's gonna get. I will say this, and I think, Gianna, you probably disagree with me, and again, it's maybe it is a messy bias, I won't lie. The other players don't have an excuse. And it's funny because in the end, of course, Messi did at the end when the whistle blow, he doesn't go and talk rudely to one person. He stays nice. He shakes everyone's hand. He watches the team lift the trophy. He does everything you want because he's the greatest of all time. However, I can name in the first half alone like 8 incidents where I think that this referee was way too lenient. And you saw the frustration in Messi. He was getting beat up in a way where it's not like you're trying to prevent him from, like, doing his thing. He was getting fouled in pretty dangerous ways, and so I think there's frustration at the end of the game throughout the team that, like, especially with those first 15 minutes after the first half where they felt we were so close and they were so frustrated with themselves and the situation that things got out of hand. So I'm gonna start with that, but everything that followed, inexcusable. Can you talk more about it? Because I think you can explain it, or at least I'm sure you've seen it once or twice in Libertadores and in other competitions where, look, heat of the moment when you're playing in an elimination game, especially a final, these things happen. But what do you make of it and what do you do from it?
Yeah, so just I guess to touch on the point that you thought that Messi was maybe fouled more than was fouled, and maybe the referee didn't necessarily discipline as much as he should have, or stop the game as much as he should have. I think your point, if you saw that, it's valid. I saw more of that, I think, against Orlando more than I did this game.
Maybe
Uh,
because we were there and this was
yeah,
TV, so we didn't see it. I think that's just
maybe
what I
I missed it, but
yeah.
if you saw that, then that's fine. I didn't see it as much as I did it in
It
the
wasn't
Orlando
life or
game.
death though. No reason for the fights, I'll tell you that
Yeah.
much.
As far as the fighting is concerned, I also mentioned it to you when we were texting during the game. I didn't want to jump to any conclusions because I don't know exactly what happened in regards to who
Look
instigated,
at
who
that, look
didn't.
what you said. Just read this comment, exactly what you're saying. Sorry. Just perfect timing that I put that comment.
I say my concern is that a lot of people are being judged, jury, and executioner before all the facts are out. From a law enforcement background, things are not always the way they first appear. I agree. Obviously, that's what I'm saying. I agree.
Okay.
I don't know who if who instigated, who didn't. Sometimes you may see things on camera and you don't hear maybe a word that was said. A lot of times, the instigator is not the one throwing the blows, but the ones that's whispering something, saying something to somebody. So from that perspective, I don't want to put the blame on a team or say that Inter Miami did that because they were sore losers. I don't have enough evidence to say that. So,
Yeah.
but what I can, I think, have an opinion on is what I actually saw. And
Right.
what I actually saw um, was Boosie punch someone. I saw
Suarez spit on a person.
Aviles going in and fighting with someone. I saw Suarez going up to a team official that apparently has been there for since
An
before
older gentleman,
2015. And I
a
think
far
some say
older
that he was a
gentleman.
security guard. I've read. I'm not 100% sure, but he steps on his foot, doesn't allow him to back up, and then spits on him. I don't know what the discussion there was between the two or anything, but I'll say this: look, you mentioned it. I've seen a lot of Copa Libertadores games in South America, Comebol, one of my favorite
World Cup too, yeah.
artists, and a lot of times, well, not a lot, but there are some times where the teams afterwards will fight, and I've never liked that, to be honest with you.
Me
I've never
neither.
liked it, and for whatever reason, I think that if somebody says something to you, you got to be man enough in this case because it's the men's league, man enough to turn around and unless you're physically protecting yourself or anything like that, words aren't enough for you to punch someone, spit on someone, or do anything
Never,
like that.
never.
So in this case, I don't like what I saw from Busquets. I thought that was very uncharacteristic of him. He's somebody that's usually the one separating, usually someone
Yeah.
that is not fighting, that is not instigating, one of the calmer ones. The experienced player, the one that you expect to bring calm to the situation. So for him to throw a right jab like that, I thought was really sad to see. Um, Suarez, he's somebody that has this history. Obviously, he beat Chiellini. He had that other one against Chelsea. He's had 9-match bans, 5-match bans,
Right.
and unfortunately,
And
while
I'm sure he was incredibly frustrated because in his highs, he's like, "Look, I did 2 amazing passes, we didn't finish it. I didn't do my job, we lost." So
yeah,
all
but
those
frustration
frustrations,
doesn't
it's
warrant
not an
that.
excuse. It's not an excuse, I'm just saying that's what probably led to him boiling over. Not an excuse. No excuses there.
I don't know. I think that whatever led to him doing, no, I mean, nothing leads to you to spit on someone.
Of
That
course
that's
not. Of
that's
course
disgusting. It's
of course
vile. It's something that I don't like that someone on my team that I root for and that I cover is doing something like
100%.
that. So I don't think there's more analysis to be had on that. That it is what it is, and it was something that is disgusting and should never happen. And I think that moving forward, it'll be interesting to see what the league, if they do anything, what Inter Miami, if they do anything. I don't know if what League's Cup will do, and if it'll matter if League's Cup puts a ban. Is
For
Suarez going
next
to be
season,
here
will he
next
even
League's
be
Cup? I
here?
don't know. And then we don't know what's in the collective bargaining agreement as far as what MLS can actually do to players when it's for a tournament outside. But I think that there should be some discipline. I'm not going to go and say how much, how long, what, or anything like that because that's not something that I'm in control of. But I don't think that you should allow a player to do that because it sets the precedent that this team is not serious, and I think that they need to be serious.
I
So
think the closest comparison we have is, like I said, last 2 months ago, Luis Enrique, who was the coach, punched a player and he got no punishment. So I think what I've seen recently, which by the way I'm not condoning, and I don't disagree with you. When you do these actions, you deserve consequences. I'm not going to say it's the same as Allende deserving consequences for missing. Obviously, these are different, but I think in sports in general, and that's a leadership thing. I saw there was a comment up here about like, yeah, this is from Francisco. There has to be a respected leader that separates in order this team to stop. What That's another example of when you don't see that. And look, from the initial statements we've seen is that the League's Cup is a separate entity from MLS and from Liga MX, right? They combine with CONCACAF to create this tournament. So there's no one governing body specifically that outside of the League's Cup matches can technically make this type of disciplinary decision. However, the team can, and if they will or not is a different question. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's to me like it's just so genuinely unfortunate because we've seen it with Suarez so many times, and it's like it's not like it's unexpected, But damn, it's really it's just such a shame because it's so unnecessary. And then you see someone who had probably one of the most frustrating games he's had in a while, which is Lionel Messi, who misses an open shot that he never does. Lo- loses a final when he knows everyone in that stadium and his team included is relying on him. um, gets is treated, in my opinion, like I said, he was being treated pretty roughly, and that's team's games plan, and that's fine. But the ref was trying to let the players play in a final, which I appreciate. But at the same time, eventually you have to create some sort of discipline. Like, you have to start somewhere. And I think all of those things combined, you still see Messi as soon as the whistle blows, shake hands. He goes to the player that actually was fighting with Busquets and Falcon and Cremaschi and all of them, and put his arm around him and kind of gave him his perspective, but in a very calm and nice way. And then he gets his trophy, he shakes everyone's hand, and he watches. And that's what you expect from everyone, and the fact that you don't see that from everyone is appalling. I saw some comments here, Aviles and Kremaski, Falcon. Falcon's a little different because, like I said, coming from Copa Libertadores, Colo Colo, etc., it is a completely different ballpark, in my opinion. Like, it is a much more, you tell me if I'm wrong. It's more aggressive in these moments. Like, these moments happen where in a final, when you lose, frustration boils over, and these things happen. And I'm saying, not saying I agree with it, but they happen. Kremaski and Aviles were other examples. Kremaski, who's not even an Inter Miami player right now, but both showing examples of being these kids who think they're entitled to this behavior, and it's a huge problem. And like you said, it stems from coaching, leadership, and overall value. You can't say Messi wasn't being a good leader because Messi was a consummate professional when they lost. He was unhappy, but he didn't do anything to anyone, and he stayed away from the fighting. So
Yeah, I'd just be careful to point this to coaching, though. I wouldn't point this specific thing to coaching. I mean, Suarez has a history
right,
under
right, right.
many
No, no, Suarez,
coaches.
no. I mean the other kids and like that big brawl in the center.
I
Like,
think that they
I
just
wish
got
it
in there
didn't happen.
because I think they got in there because they're defending their players. I mean, I don't like what I saw from Aviles, and I don't like what I saw from others, but I think that those that are at fault are Busquets and Suarez more than anything. And then the rest of the guys, like once you see a brawl going on, I don't fault the rest of them for going in there and trying to protect their guys. But the ones that are at fault are the guys that are almost 40 years old, that have all the experience in the
Right.
world. They're supposed to be the example for the younger guys on this team, and end up doing this. I think that those are the guys that are at fault. The other guys are just watching out for their
Right.
team as they should be.
I think that's a fair point. And I mean, look, Rodrigo De Paul, who is, I would say, probably the one who's gotten into the most fights, if you're probably looking pound for pound over the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years of competitive, both international and domestic. He wasn't in any of the fights, I'm pretty sure, or he was trying to break it up, right? Like, I didn't see him throw any punches. So
Who
if
did you say?
De Paul, I didn't
DePaul.
see him
Yeah, I
throw any
didn't see
punches.
anything there.
So if Messi and De Paul are the ones who are not throwing any punches, and then you have Suarez and Busquets are, we got a problem, right? Like, we got, that means that we have a problem with a lot. Um, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so we're about to hit an hour mark. We're about to go into, we're obviously into an international break now. On what's today's Tuesday, right? On Thursday, it will be Lionel Messi's final home competitive match for Barcelona and for Argentina and Buenos Aires. And I think that I'm excited to see that, and I wish him the best. Maybe we'll do an episode about it. We'll see. Um, the team and the players are about to have this nice sort of 10-day break and reset. And look, will we see punishments? I think Suarez deserves one. I think it's a freaking shame because, like I said, for whether we agree or not with what he is being asked to do, and if the team should have picked a better forward, that's not what he's being asked to do. He's doing it on the field. Him having this moment is such a shame because, like, God, when are you going to learn? You're, to your point, you're almost 40 years old. You've accomplished so much in your soccer career. You are one of the best strikers of your generation, and you did 2 phenomenal passes to try and help your team win today. What on earth would make you think you should go not only if you wanna argue with players, fine, you argue with players, I don't like it, you don't like it, etcetera. You don't go spit on a 75-year-old assistant from Seattle, you don't, I'm sorry. It's inexcusable. We'll see what happens. Um, all I can say is so I know a lot of thoughts happening. I'm trying to wrap up the episode. We still have the MLS Cup. This season has not turned out the way we hoped it would. I would say if we're looking at positives, look, we just got DePaul. I do believe DePaul, they will figure out where he fits best and he will raise his game. And when he's playing these MLS games, especially as we finish out these next 2 months with the playoffs, I expect and hope to see more. What that means in terms of Mascherano's future. I hope we see the Lionel Messi extension, and what that means for players like Suarez and Busquets, who maybe to their point, this may be the end, even if they didn't want it to be. Like maybe they're nearing maybe their own end. I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. This isn't the last episode of Messi and Co. for the season. This is us just reacting to this. I think we've said our piece. I think everyone here has given such great feedback and thoughts, and I think we've had a good discussion on it. It's a disappointing evening as an Inter Miami fan. It's a disappointing evening as a Messi fan, but we continue to move on and we hope we can salvage, to your point, an MLS Cup and at least find a direction. Because there's you have Messi and you have let's say at the very minimum, you have Messi for at least another year or 2. For God's sake, he's still one of the top 10, 15 players in the world. I'd say 1, but if people are gonna disagree, because that's being a little biased, but he's still one of the greatest players in the world and of all time. Figure out how to maximize him, and that's what we need to see. So that's what we have to move forward with. Do you have any final thoughts, Gian? Because I know we've gone through a lot. It's been an hour. We've had some great, like I said, feedback from the people watching. Thank you guys so much for participating. But Gian, I'll let you kind of close us out with what your final thoughts are and what I guess you want to see moving forward.
Yeah, we talked about it. It was a disappointing final for us. Not surprised by some of the things that we saw. A lot of things leading up to this. A lot of changes need to come out of this. This may be the moment that maybe is a bucket of cold water for this team and for this coaching staff to realize that if they don't change things, the season is going to be a failure because they've already
And they're out. Like
lost
Mascherano
out.
has a 1 year chance. Like if
They've
he doesn't
already
win
lost
anything,
out
he's
on
out.
multiple finals. Well, they lost out on this final. They didn't make the
Yeah. And a
championship
finals berth.
final.
Yeah.
Um, so I hope that this is a bucket of cold water that really shows them that they need to make some changes. Because this isn't a experimental year. This isn't a year for Mascherano to figure things out. No, this is a win now team. You've brought
You
in
have
the
very
talent.
limited time left.
Don't know how much longer Messi's going to be here. Busquets may not be here another season. He's yet to say whether he will be or will not. This may be Suarez's last season, maybe Jordi's. So they got to figure things out this
No,
season.
Jordy just signed an extension, but the other
Sorry, not Jordi, but yeah, Busquets. So yeah, I think that there's still a chance right now if they make changes to win MLS Cup. If nothing changes, we're not winning anything the rest of the season. As the team currently stands, it's not a winning formula. And then Messi, wishing him the best of luck. Messi goes and plays his last game in Argentina for
and I
a
hope he has a
Club World Cup
beautiful
qualifier
evening and a
against
celebration.
Venezuela. So hopefully he does well there. I don't know if he'll play that second game against Ecuador because that'll be in Quito.
Yeah,
Probably
I
don't play
think
there.
probably it's the last one, and he deserves. I hope he feels, it's tough to go after this finals loss, even though but what he's done for Argentina and
Yeah,
the troubles he's had to go through and the heartbreak he's had to go through, he deserves to have the most phenomenal final competitive match there. And I hope the celebration and the goodwill he receives is something we all get to enjoy and be the catalyst to your point of get this team cold water. We have 10 days to reset. Kremaski just got to move to Parma. Now is the time where Mascherano, you need to put your big boy pants on. You need to figure out what you do. We'll see if there's suspensions. We'll see about any of that. But outside of that, you need to figure out how to get your team to win the big games and the big moments and how that's going to work. You have 10 days to figure it out, and in the middle of that, you're gonna have Messi experiencing hopefully a beautiful evening to work his way toward the end of his Argentine national career. And so we can only move up, I guess, is what I guess. I feel like Sunday felt in some ways not like a rock bottom, but it felt like we were hitting a down place, right? And now we have this 10-day break. We have this great moment. Can we rise and can we finish this season? And then can we figure out what's next? And look, Messi and Co will be here every step of the way on that journey. So thank you again to everyone for participating. Like I said, this was a great discussion. Everyone made phenomenal points. We'll have to just wait and see what happens in terms of discipline. Remember Thursday night will be Messi's final game at Buenos Aires. Hopefully you guys watch and we all can watch and enjoy and celebrate what the greatest of all time has done for his national team. It's incredibly well deserved. And then as it relates to Inter Miami, we have the 6 weeks push. We have a 3-game advantage to try to get as high seeding as possible. And hopefully we can make something happen and end the year with a trophy. And then we'll see what happens next. You with me?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching again. If you weren't able to watch live, leave your comments below and let us know your thoughts. If you agree or disagree with any of our points, any points we missed, or anything else you want to highlight. And we appreciate you guys taking the time. So for this episode of Messi and Co, I'm Ashley. That is Gian, and we will see you next time.